People of the world, welcome to Marketing as a Foreign Language. This, the 290th episode. When Chryssy hopped on backstage, immediately I thought to myself, this is going to be a good interview. And I'll tell you why it's going to be a good interview, because we're being real with one another. We got to the point in the conversation where we were talking about whether or not if a client pays more for a website, that changes the perception of the person working on that website. And to be honest with you, if I'm a web developer and someone comes in and they're like, we just sold a $20,000 website, the whole brain chemistry, like cocktail of emotions and the whole thing is going to feel and be different for me than if someone comes in and says, that's a $3,000 website. It changes me. And it changes the way I'm going to interact with that website, build that website, the amount of time I'm going to spend with the client, that sort of thing. Same sort of thing. You walk into like a BMW car lot, like it just feels different than walking into a Ford car lot, that sort of vibe. Anyway, point is that I am very excited to introduce our guest today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. The honest, the truthful, the one and only, Chryssy Robinson.
Hi, everyone. I love the intro.
Let's go. So you're building websites, you're turning away some internet marketing clients a little bit. We can talk about that in detail, but let's start with the websites. How much you charge for a website and how do you arrive at that number?
Yeah, I love that question. So I charge anywhere. So like I said in the beginning, we have like a starter package, right? This is for more geared towards that new entrepreneur, that startup who just needs kind of a face online. That starts at $2,000. And then if we get into anything custom where you're getting the brand strategist, myself, come onto the project and we're meeting with you and building a page that's perfect for your audience and all that kind of stuff, we go through a lot of work. That's starting anywhere from like 3 to 4 and as much as 13 plus, depending on what we're doing. Because as you can imagine, anything with tech, it's always a little... when people ask me for price ranges, it's like when I give that to a client, when I give them like anywhere from 2,000 to 15,000, they're like, where am I? And I'm like, I don't know until I talk to you. But how we come up with the price is, well, one, I have a pricing calculator that I use. I've built myself over the years. I put in my team's time, the effort, the complexity, and then most importantly, value to the client. So like I always factor in like some of the functionality that we're building. So say, for example, if we're building a site, and it's just kind of like a redesign, it's going to be a lot lower than something that maybe has like some booking. Maybe it has like a CMS system a CMS where we are integrating with different APIs. It just depends, right? Based on like the value to the client, but that's typically how I price. I start with my calculator always. So in my calculator, I factor in labor, materials, which are usually nothing with a website, my operating expenses, merchant fees, profit like 4 times. And I think that's it. I think that's all that's on there.
So if I am an entrepreneur, what happens if I just go to Fiverr and I find some dude who can build the website for $350? He lives in Pakistan and he's got a 4.9 star rating. And I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, it's whatever. I just want a WordPress website. Just put it up there, do me a solid. And I go through it. Are there people out there where that is great? Like, yes, very happy with my Fiverr experience. Hooray for me.
I think so. I think well, here's the thing. Do you know, like, let's just say, do you know the most gourmet steak you could possibly eat in your life if you've never even seen it or know the cuts or like the flavors or how it could be seasoned? No. But is the steak that's sitting in front of you good enough? Sure. I'm sure it fills your belly. I'm sure it does whatever it needs to do for the moment. So I think at some point when it becomes a need to the client, it's all that we should really be worried about. And I think most times, more often than not, they will realize in their business when they need more. They'll realize if they're paying attention, right? Because we all know the business owners that don't. But if they're trying to stay current, if they're trying to, and not current from a design perspective, by the way, I mean more of a technology perspective, automating certain processes in your business, streamlining certain processes in your business. If you're trying to stay current and keep kind of constantly improving your business and helping your site and your online presence in general to improve things, at some point that $350 site isn't going to do it for you. And not because of the price of it, but we can only assume that the functionality is very limited at $350. Like, you get what you pay for. So you're probably going to get some WordPress template and they're going to fill it in with the colors, and that's it. They're not going to talk to you about who your audience is. They're not going to talk to you about what the site needs to do, what could it do. You're not even going to know what the options are.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, to be just super duper honest, there are a lot of people where I think that's the path. I really do. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who have an idea. I mean, I used to teach this certain nonprofit where people would come in and literally it would run the gamut between guy who folds his arm and sits in back and doesn't say anything and doesn't want to share his business idea because he thinks it's the best idea ever. And if you were to mention it to anyone, that we couldn't possibly, you know what I mean? There's that guy.
Yeah.
And then there's sort of like dude with idea that's not that great, who's really excited about it. Like, you see, it's like a piece of plastic, but you can put your flyers in it for trade shows. You see, I'm like, I'm not a big fan of the idea. And it's hard to say that to someone who's really excited about this idea. And here's the thing, watch me be wrong. Fine. You know what I mean? I've seen thousands and thousands and talked to thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs. I'm not going to get it always right, but there's that type. You know, for a lot of those people, it's like, yeah, $3,500 website doesn't make a lot of sense at all, because I don't think the idea itself is that great. And backstage, you and by not that great, I mean you may become one of the most successful entrepreneurs I've ever met through learning through this particular experience, and you should be loved along the entire path. But part of that love is what I learned being a father, which is sometimes you're like, no, you don't get a jelly sandwich at 10:30 at night because that's not good for you, and brush your teeth. It's that kind of love. Like, did you brush your teeth today? Did you floss? Do you have a client? Is that client paying you? How much has that client? You know what I mean? That sort of stuff. So let's talk a little bit about your first client. What did you have to do to get the ball rolling for people out there that are kind of
first client ever?
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're that person now who's like, I can't spend $3,000 on website. That's crazy. There's no way I would ever do that. And you're looking for those initial bits of business. Where'd they come from?
Well, I will say that I didn't start charging that much. Like, I didn't come.
No, of course not. Yeah,
that much. But I would say I think this conversation really boils back down to price versus value. So, like, once I began, because I would say in the beginning stages of my business, I was like my client under the impression that the site was what they needed when it's not. Right. So, like, most people, when they're looking for a site, there's actually a real business problem they're trying to solve, and they believe that the site is going to solve that problem. So I did the work as a brand strategist. I've done the work of client interviews and documenting what they say and transcribing it. And through that, I found that the real problem for most business owners is like one of three things. It's either getting more sales, growing their team, or like expanding in some other way, whether that's locations. It's essentially exposure. Whether it's client facing or internal, it's exposure, getting bigger. So with that being said, when you learn how to kind of pivot the conversation in a consultation to that need, like, I barely talk about the site inside of the consultation, believe it or not. I call it a discovery call. We're not getting on the call to talk about all the pages of your website. That's really insignificant. So, like, I haven't really had this issue of, like, most times when people don't move forward, they have every intention to, or we point them in a different direction, meaning like I will very quickly give someone the resources to hire on Upwork or Fiverr or something like that in a heartbeat. I do it all the time. I'm like, I will meet someone where they are, and people respect me for that. And I have a really good reputation because of it. So for me, when we usually come to that, like, that road of like, work with us or don't, it's usually something that we both arrive there together. Like, literally, I don't really have a hard time, and I'm not saying this to be cocky, I don't have a hard time closing. My issue is more like lead qualification, getting the right people in front of me. If the right person's sitting in front of me and the site will solve their business problem, the actual problem they have, let's do it. And I usually don't have any issues with that. So for me, and I can even look back in the day before, when I was charging like this and I was thinking like this, when I changed my mindset around my business, yeah, I had a hard time like trying to sell a $1,000 site, because I was under the impression, like my clients, that it was, but I didn't make the connection. You know, I was like, yeah, they're coming to me for a website, so they must need one. So let me talk to you about this great website I'm going to build for you, but not drawing it back to the real problem, because I wasn't asking the real problem.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. For the longest time, and yeah, it's fascinating to see all the enlightenments you've had
Mm-hmm.
over the years. I feel like, and I talk about this all the time, that so spirituality gets kind of like boxed over here as sort of this, but there, like the business can be, for me, I'll just guarantee you, for me, it's been a spiritual path, because what you're realizing is, how do I actually help this human being avoid suffering and make their life better? How do I do
Yes.
that? And so that's the fundamental baseline question. And then listening to them, you kind of go, okay, like, and then there's this trap along the path to enlightenment of like being the helper. I'm going to help you, and I hear it all the time in sales environments where people come in and they start talking about all the ways that they're going to help them. And then, like, literally, I was on a call the other day with this garage door company, and one of my staff was concerned that the client in question wanted a certain thing. And I was just like, hey guys, what do you want? And I listened, and he answered the question, which was, no, our fears are completely unfounded. We don't have to do that thing at all. All of those fears that we were having this discussion internally, that doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
However, her next comment had to do with that fear, because she was still in that sort of thinking about that as his thing. And I had to, in the call, say, like, no, he just mentioned it's not a problem. You know what I mean? It's that sort of reactivity. And so, yes, selling, client communication, and Buddhism are the same thing.
I would say for sure. I would say that my business, or let's say entrepreneur journey, whatever you want to hashtag it, I would say that has very much so shaped me into the person I am today, which would in fact mean that it is definitely a spiritual journey you take, regardless of what you believe in. Because I always say business, if anything, holds up a mirror to your face and asks you, like, do you like what you see? And if you don't, you have two options. You change it and you push forward, or you go back to 9 to 5 or wherever you were before. But the thing why it pushes you so much is because you choose to do it. Whereas everything else, you're kind of required to, like, you're required to work a job and pay your bills. You're required to show up. You're required, but business forces you to create the structure, the discipline, everything that it needs yourself. You have to be all self motivated, self-structured, whatever, discipline, all the things. So it really pushes you. And I mean, spirit, that's the only way to really drive forward. So I think that's 100% dead on, for
Well,
sure.
good. I'm glad we're on the same page, because I
Yeah.
bring about it a lot, and it doesn't resonate with everybody. I'll mention it and it just falls flat a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's good to have a kindred spirit in that regard, because I swear on the very essence of who I am as a soul, is that it is this epic. Because look, it's easy to look at someone who dedicates their life to meditation in a cave somewhere in the Himalayas as, oh, look how holy that is. And then there are people that will turn to that person and listen to their words of wisdom and say, yeah, but I have kids, I can't meditate. And of course, the holy person's response is like, no, that's your path. Don't you understand? Like those children that, you know what I mean? For me, it's the silence of the cave and the fly that keeps, like sitting on my nose. That's what I have. That's my path. That's my particular training in this moment. For you, it's the loud kids and the YouTube videos and them wanting sugar at 10:30 at night. And it's still the path, you know what I mean? And your reactivity to it is really what's being called into question. We have one negative review. We have one negative review, and dude, this particular gentleman went. He went. Did the whole thing, and I swear to you, I would be on a call with him, and he would make a point. I would address that point, and then he would make the same point, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, very confused. I was like, okay. And then I would address it again. And these conversations would last like 3 hours. And I would sit to myself and I'd go, I'm just at a complete and total loss. Like, I don't know what can you do when the person you're talking to can't hear you, or doesn't, it's like continuously doesn't understand you. And when he left that 1-star review, I was like, he's right to do that because I was unable to communicate with him. I couldn't do it. I tried my hardest, and I left my final like response as a respond as owner, being like, we talked about all of this like 9 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'll take responsibility for that because I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. I've definitely had those scenarios. And I would say, at least within my own company, we're constantly looking at situations, even on a micro scale, because I'm sure, like, in the very early stages, there was evidence of that, but you were probably so, like, deep in trying to get the sale, deep in trying to get the client, the whatever, solve the problem, whatever you were focused on, you weren't really paying attention to it per se. And then when it became a problem, probably when the timeline started to get extended, there was frustration there. So then we were like, no, you know, I feel like that's always factored in. So a couple things that I do now, for me, it's just like doing good business and business with integrity, right? So one of the things that I'm known for is managing expectations. Everyone on my team is groomed the same way. They understand that when we're communicating with clients, we're constantly over communicating, because I believe in like nothing clarifies like clarity. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. Really great example. Even within my team, we do the same thing. At the end of one of our meetings today, I asked both people in the meeting what just happened, and they said two different things, and it's not really their fault. To be 100%, when you know how the brain works, which is a lot of research that I've been doing a lot lately, it's not our fault. Our brain is like, you're not even hearing what I'm saying right now. This should blow your mind, because it blew my mind when I learned it. You are listening to it through a filter of your own mind. That's why, like, if you take notes when someone's writing, you tend to take it and put it into your own words and not what's actually being said. So I think one of the things that helped me in that same scenario is, one, going back and listening to my calls and making sure that I'm communicating in a way that's very clear, because there's so many different ways to say things in the English language. It's not 100% everyone's fault. And then another thing too is like sending recaps after every call. This is what we discussed, right? I don't really have too many issues with that, just because we've implemented so many things on the micro scale when it was happening, like in the calls or even in email communication. Like, I over communicate intentionally. Another tip I would say too is like what you probably do, but project kickoffs, to kind of set expectations, to say like, this is what we are doing, this is what we aren't, this is your chance to bow out. No emotions here. Like, just let us know this is what we agreed to do. This is anything that's on your contract that might be challenging. And people really respect it. The way they even approach our working relationship is different because of the way I structure myself. I'm a firm believer in people, or you teach people how to treat you, therefore they will teach or treat you how you taught them to treat you, right? So if you apply everything in a way, my clients will not do stuff like that to me. It just won't happen. I haven't, knock on wood, don't get me wrong, there's no such thing. I'm sure someone's going to be unhappy one day, right? One day they're going to leave a review. But for the most part, I'm able to manage a situation where I'm able to, even when things go wrong, right? We have a project right now that we've been working on since April. Holy crap. And in communicating with that client, I'm very direct about like, hey, we need to do this. We can't do this. We can't do this. We're already past this. This is what it's going to be. So I think it's all about like handling situations delicately and knowing how to assert yourself where people know how to treat you. Like for me, and I tell my team all the time, I have their back 100%. 100%. Like, I will never be that person that's like, oh, well, the client wants this, like, we need to just do this. No, I will push back on the client all day long and say, we can do this on the next project, or we can do this in phase 2 of your application or something like that. But I don't know. Those are just some suggestions that I would say, but without knowing like the real details. I can honestly say I haven't been through like the tail end. There was a couple times I had some poor issues with clients, but I know why that was. And that was going to be my final point too, is it could have also been just where he was in life at that moment. That's a real thing. Like, we got to understand, like, if we're working with entrepreneurs, as stressed as you are, right, on a day-to-day, month-to-month, whatever, we go through our cycles, right? Everybody's stressed at some point. If you were to sit here and tell me you're not stressed about your business at some point, I know you'd be lying. So same thing goes to him, right? If we show a little bit of empathy, he's invested some money. To him, it's probably a lot. He's invested some money to get something done. It wasn't done to the way that he thought. And so with all the other demands of life, maybe new baby, new this, new that, whatever, that's just the thing that had to give, you know?
Oh
That's the
yeah.
thing that's the last, like, what do they call that name? Like Jenga? That was that stick. You just pulled it out and
Yeah,
it
and
just
the
came
whole thing
tumbling
came
down.
tumbling
And
down.
unfortunately, you were like the person to catch it,
Hey
unfortunately.
man, it's like, yeah, again, it's all spiritual. And like I use the word spiritual where my scientist friends would say psychological. It's fine.
Yes.
Neuroscientific, like whatever you want to call it. Um, whatever makes you happiest. But that's the game. And I was into chess like intensely for a while. I got up to the 90th percentile on chess.com, right? For certain sort of whatever, like it's called blitz, it doesn't matter. And chess taught me a lot. Like you have to sacrifice the queen to win sometimes, right? Which is gnarly. Like nobody wants to do that. It's scary. You're like, or that the best chess players are positional. They'll look at a position that most people would go, it's equal. They have the same amount of pawns. We have the same amount of pawns. They've got the same amount of horses. We got the same amount of horses. They're called knights. That's a joke. And
No.
but positionally, one team or one side is just dominating the other. But you just can't see it. You just can't see it unless you see it. And
Mm-hmm.
so as we move forward with client relations, my strategy, it sounds like you were heavily involved in the whole song and dance, and that I love that, and I'm a little bit jealous of it because I took a cue from this dude named Ram Dass. You can check him out, but his big thing was extrication. He kept using this word extricate yourself from the process, extricate yourself from identifying with the body, see yourself as a soul, so this stuff like this, right? And so I fell in love with this idea of, okay, whatever I'm doing, I need to stop doing that because it's not that hard. Okay. It's not impossible. If I can do it, someone else can do it and they can do it better than me. Okay. So I'll just keep finding somebody to do whatever that stupid thing that I think no one else can do. And I'm so good at it is. And I've done that like 15 times. Okay. It
Mm-hmm.
just keeps happening and keeps happening, keeps happening. And then these last 2 or 3 are the ones that have really stretched me because then I go, what do I do? Right. I wrote the book. That was the thing. Oh, now I have time. I'll write a book. Did that. Don't have another book in me. Sorry. Just don't. I can sit there. I just nothing. There's nothing there. Right. There's just nothing there. So it's not going to be another book. The pandemic squashed a lot of my public speaking stuff. Like I speak at universities sometimes, but what do you do? And then I'm like, I'll start a show. Right. So now I'm doing the show and doing the whatever. But what I find is all of the yummy, sort of like in the trenches fighting stuff that you're doing, I'm not in those anymore. I'm
Yeah.
outside of those, right? And what I've noticed is that's really scary because then I go, are my skills atrophying? Like, am I still? And I'll hop on a call just briefly, and I'll do my little SEO thing, which is that's my expertise. And then I have to be very humble. I have to just shut the hell up. Right. Because I'll do my little thing that I know I'm good at. And then Michelle and Todd, they roll up. They're like, oh, yeah, jQuery back when I was building databases for and I'm just like.
See, I think that's the difference. So I'm not in, like, my team does everything. I'm not in like the day-to-day of the thing, but I have knowledge of, because that's my expertise, I have knowledge of what the working components are. And I've also very well documented and very much drilled into each of them. Right, we're training 2 people right now, so we're in that drilling season right now. But drilled into them, like what our standard of quality are, what we're here to do. We're not just making shit look pretty. Excuse me. We're not just doing that, We're not just building a beautiful. Anybody can do that. I can find you a 10-year-old that can make you a nice site on something like Wix, So I think for me, it's, again, it goes back to like culture. Like that's my job. It's culture, training, sales, of course. Like I'm doing the same things. But like I would say there's a clear handoff process, and my clients know who they should be like reaching out to about what, which is just one person, by the way. It's the project manager. It's not even the technical people, because they have a tendency to talk over a client's head. The client doesn't care about the databases and jQuery. They don't care about that. They just want to solve their problem, and they don't care about the functionality. And also what I find, and just because I have a background working in tech, technical people tend to overthink. They can be something so simple, right? Like, let's kill the spider on the wall, or not kill them. That's a terrible example, but And they're going to build you like some automation that's going to constantly slap the wall every 10 minutes when it was just one spider, you know? So I run into that a lot. So again, it's like driving culture. Hey guys, let's solve the problem. Let's not overthink it. So I'm more of like a fire putter outer on my team, or a, what are y'all doing? Get out of that whole little think tank y'all are in, because it's not necessary. I'm all about simplifying things, making things real simple. But to that degree, I am still so much in the company because the culture is very much driven by me, and kind of setting like the standards of what it means to be with Color Addict, to be a representation of that. I'm training my team. I would say my day-to-day is very much like giving feedback. I still, as the creative director, I'm still like seeing the website. I have a QA tester. I don't test it or anything, but making sure it's still up to par of what we're putting out. So it's kind of like quality control is what I do.
Mm-hmm. You own the company, right? You own the company.
Yeah.
I
don't have partners or anything like that.
Oh, me neither. Oh, dude, I was in a company. God bless them. And the two owners, I was like, they are going to get a business divorce. I know it. The writing's on the wall. This is never gonna, you know. And this is advice for anyone that's in a sort of like a small company who's like trying to navigate that. And if I hadn't successfully navigated that, I mean, we're talking eye of the storm. I'm in a leaky boat. It's going under. The Hindenburg's exploding. Like it is bad. But I managed to like jump out, parachute, life raft, like float to safety somehow. Built my own website. Oh, it's a gnarly tale. And looking back on it, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm proud of myself. I'll put you that way. I'm proud of myself. In the moment, it was just like, and scary and all that sort of stuff. But I'll just say that to the folks listening. It's like, you can be proud of your accomplishments. You know what I mean? Like if you're an entrepreneur, like there's a part of that where it's like, yes, it is true that all paths lead to the top of the mountain, right? You know what I mean? So it's like, we're going to tell you about our paths and what's working for us, but they're all different paths. Like you literally can't take the same path because you're atomically, you'll be off by like X, Y, Z, whatever. But they all lead to the top of the mountain, and the view at the top of the mountain is the same for everybody. Like once you get there, you know what I mean? If you're willing to, suffer a little bit. But if you can take pleasure in the suffering, knowing that it's all part of that journey for that big payoff, well, there you go. But anyway, 10:58. I want to make sure you have a chance to pitch selfishly as a capitalist. Who are you? Why should they hire you? Etc. So pitch them, tell them how they can reach you.
Yeah, if you want to connect with me, you can either book a call on my website, coloraddict.com. That's spelled with K's, KOLORADDIKT.com. Or you can find me on Instagram. I'm an open book, so ask me any questions.
Are you on TikTok?
No.
Got to get on TikTok.
It's terrible for business. Are you actually getting leads from TikTok?
I don't get leads from any social media. Are you kidding? We sold. Do you? Oh, now I got to check out your stuff. Or you getting leads from Instagram?
Instagram, yeah.
See, we got to get you back on the show. I want to hear all about your Instagram leads.
Yeah, let's do it.
That'll be interesting. Yeah. I have a staff member who got 1 million views on TikTok 4 weeks ago. So we're doing trainings
But that's easy to do on TikTok. That means nothing to me.
What are you talking about?
It's easy to do on TikTok. Are you TikTok, trust me, it's easy to do on TikTok. I have clients that get like thousands and thousands of views, go viral on TikTok all the time.
We're gonna talk about this. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have this conversation next time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for swinging by. YouTube.com/Send It Rising. Marketing is foreign language, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, iTunes, Spotify. Y'all know the drill. We'll see you next time. Bye.